And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hit and Sit show for Conference USSSA. This is episode number 30. As always, I'm your host, David Bear, pitcher from Siteman Pure. I swing Suncoast. I've got a little bit different of a panel today. No players involved, but we got a couple of returners like normal. We got DW from ConferenceUSSSA.com. And with us today, joining us from Dirty Vegas as the manager and the coach from Dirty Vegas, that is Spencer Sangster. From down there in Texas. Looks like he's a Houston fan, if I'm reading that hat right. We won't talk about those trash cans down in Houston or anything today, but we'll go into some softball here instead of baseball and World Series victories and all that good stuff. But today we are going to talk about the AA division, how that breakdowns happened. Last time we talked about the major division. We'll talk about AA this time. A couple of emails that got sent this past week talking about our TBD teams and where they are going to be classified now. And, of course, breaking down the Windy City Major. So we'll go into all of that now. First things first, we're going to talk about the Windy City Major and how everybody finished. Dawson, if you could make sure that's popped up there on the screen for me. So our top five in Chicago, number one was Roofex. The folks there, they got that nice little double dip, ended up double dipping JBL in the championship game. So I was kind of close in my prediction. JBL finished second. Nitro Circus finished third. Competitive Edge finished fourth. And then tied for fifth was West Point and Comatose. So it was a pretty good little tournament. Ourselves here at Siteman, we did not play overly great this past weekend, but we did squeak out a win there against West Point to begin with. DW, I know you were there covering everything. What did you see at the tournament? How did everything go for you? What did you notice with everybody there in Chicago?
Yeah, we had some good weather. The wind didn't affect it too much except for the main field. It blew in on the main field. Comatose, as you said, non-conference A team from Wisconsin, lost their first game to Chick-fil-A, won 4 straight, finished fifth. West Point lost their first game there to Siteman, won 4 straight, finished tied for fifth. And then, of course, the big news, and there's always upsets in Chicago, but Competitive Edge losing to Roofex in the semifinals, and then Nitro Circus late Saturday night. They didn't even make it to Sunday, so Competitive Edge finished fourth. Nitro Circus played Roofex Sunday morning in the third place game and lost. Roofex kind of gutted out 3 straight wins on Sunday morning with the wind blowing in. They played great defense. Ryan McClanahan had to pitch. Justin Mucciarelli didn't make the trip. Mike Jacobson, who pitched Saturday, all the games Saturday, he had to go coach his son's baseball team Sunday morning. So they were down to the bare minimum, and their second baseman, Jason Slaybaugh, filled in nicely for him. I have a tribute to Ryan McClanahan Sunday middle defense. He was the MVP of the tournament. Roofex beat JBL, double dipped him. Check out my screen here. Here's Ryan McClanahan fielding the middle. Gets Radich, gets Hendrickson, gets Mike Williams, gets Adam Ussery, gets Ussery again, and then Steve Edwards. McClanahan fielding the middle. That's a part of the reason he was MVP. And then here's their stats for the weekend. Arliss Miller, the right fielder, Jeremy Fry, the middle guy, Terry Lambright, all over 800. McClanahan at 743 with 7 doubles and 5 homers, plus the pitching. Great defense by them, speed defense. It was fun to watch. They've had 2 great weekends.
Yes, as always, McClanahan, one of the fastest hands in the conference, especially defensively. And like we talked about last show, Roofex doing exactly what they're supposed to do and making every play and even plays you don't expect them to make. Spencer, I know that Dirty Vegas wasn't there in Chicago, but did you get a chance to watch this weekend? What did you notice out in Chicago if you got a chance to watch?
Yeah, I was paying attention to it. Like DW said, the RoofX team, the wind blowing in a little bit on Sunday, kind of plays right into their hands, right? Speed, defense, hustle. Uh, they did a great job 2 weekends in a row. We played them in Tennessee, and they did they did the same thing to us. Big field, wind blowing in a little bit. They played great defense. McClanahan made a play on Andy Filateo at shortstop in that game that was just
Yeah.
lights out. They're a really good team, and they put it all together right now. Uh, JBL, they were solid all weekend too. Ran out of gas a little bit on Sunday morning. I think Dombrowski not being able to pitch the rest of the weekend kind of affected them a little bit. And I don't remember Frincell playing uh, on
Yeah,
Sunday
he
either.
Brock hurt his shoulder doing a roofing job for JBL actually. So
I got you.
he's out for a while, but that really hurts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brock is a really
he's
good
having
one.
a really good start.
Yeah, Brock's a very very good ball player, and that's big deal for them. Not to toot McClanahan's horn too much, but when we were talking about last time, we were talking about Marshburn could be potentially the best defensive player at any position you put him at. McClanahan, don't let the physique fool you. You put him out in the outfield, he's gonna be just as good too. I mean, he's good everywhere defensively. He's very 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 solid. There's a reason he's a multiple time defensive player of the year in the conference. When we talk about Chicago, a couple of things happened there. I think that, kind of stood out. Granted, I don't think people noticed in certain cases, but, part of the day on Friday, there were a couple of those lovely Death Valley Pro-Ms in the bucket there. I don't think, unless you were actually truly paying attention to the serial code, that it made that big of a difference from a hitting or pitching standpoint. More of a mentality thing. Then with Siteman, we played pretty well against West Point. Competitive edge opened up on us late Friday night, and I mean they did what major teams are supposed to do. We put up a small number in the first or second inning, and then they just emptied the tank. And then Comatose, very good ball team. Geno Buck doing Geno Buck things on the mound. He is a very very good pitcher, and his son, I believe his name's Ty, that was playing first base.
Yeah.
He stands way off on the edge of the batter's box, very hard out. I mean, anything you threw to him, he was hitting it well. It's a very good little team there. Good run by them and West Point both. Losing early and end up finishing top fifth. That's not a bad thing at all. But moving on from the Whitney City Major, let's talk about the AA division as a whole. Spencer, I kind of thought to begin the year y'all might end up being in the AA division, but with we'll talk about that kind of how that broke down, putting y'all in the A. But with the AA right now, we've got the power. It looks like the power rankings here on the screen. Who do you have as your current standout in AA? And then try to give me a top 5 based on what we're looking at here with the current AA division, assuming we play AA Worlds tomorrow.
Yeah, I think. At the moment, right now today, I think RoofX is playing the best. I mean, that's easy to say after the last 2 weekends. I think though, when we really get down to it in October, we get to AA Worlds, a Major World Series. That smash it roster's got too much talent, too much experience on it, really, to count them out. To me, they're probably the favorite still in the AA, just because of what they've got put together over there. And then RoofX 2, Sports Reach would be my number 3 right now. I mean, they've had some crazy runs through losers brackets. What they did in Texas and Euless was pretty remarkable on that run that they had. JBL 4, and then Chick-fil-A 5.
Okay, good. It's a good little grouping there. I can definitely agree with a few of those. I think we're going to be a little different on a couple. DW, I know that you think that the AA is rather strong, and a lot of these teams are very close to that major side of things. Who do you have right now from your number 1, and what do you have as our top 5?
Yeah, so early on, JBL, of course, beat Rismondo at the Hall of Fame Classic. Nitro Circus had Sunday finishes in like the first 3 or 4 tournaments. weekends. Sports Reach had the run in Texas, a run in Myrtle Beach. S&E had the huge run in Myrtle Beach where they only lost to Rismondo. They beat a couple major teams. Roofx they've been the cream of the crop in the AA the last 2 weekends after a slow start. Smash It's the team that would have one good tournament in a duel, and then the second tournament would be bad, or vice versa. And Chick-fil-A won with all the major teams present in Texas with the hard balls. So they've all those top teams, the top 7, have had their moments. But like Spencer said, Smash It has the roster, the experience. When they get to Florida, the rest of these AA teams are going to have perfect games against them, and I think it's going to take 2 different teams to beat them. So Smash It's probably your favorite. Chick-fil-A's got a puncher's chance. Roofx keeps getting better. That's the key there. Like, if they stay healthy and they keep getting better, it could change my opinion. No question. If you look at the power rankings here, Chick-fil-A's on top. That's pretty much because of their run in Texas. But it's close. When you're 2.04 to 1.9 with Smash It, Roofx has climbed like almost a whole point in the last 2 weeks. But a key thing we always look at, your record against your division. Do you have 2 times more wins than losses? And who has that? And right now it's Roofx, 7-3, S&E 4-2. So historically, those would be, if you're just going by statistics, the Roofx and S&E. But we all think Smash It has the experience to turn it on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do me a favor, DW, scroll in a little bit on the ranking so we can see it just a little bit clearer there. So I definitely agree with the Smash It side of things from a roster standpoint. They've got a lot of veterans. You've got some folks that are, got a lot of major experience. They've been there, done that type thing. When it comes to Florida, when it comes to the A world or the AA world, there are 2 people that in my head, especially here recently, I say recently, Mooch has pitched for he could play over 35 in just the conference. But when we talk about he's won several times, and both of those teams have with Sports Reach, you have a lot of the precision guys there. You have a lot of the previous Sports Reach guys. You got Jonas, and then say something happens to Jonas, you have a really good backup in Bluzitsky, I think is how you say his last name. And he whacks it too as a pitcher. That's a huge plus for them. And OJ McFarland's been there, done that. They won an A, and he won the B, an A. I don't know if they won. Did they win the AA as well? DW, do you remember?
I think they finished second with him.
Finished second in the AA, and now you come back in with again a Jonas-led team. Jonas is, when we talk about pitchers that can change the game and outcome of games, Jonas is definitely one flirting with the top of that ceiling all the time, and he fills the middle extremely well. But when I go back when I'm thinking right now, who's going to possibly just win everything as it currently sits, assuming you have a healthy, ready-to-go Justin Mucciarelli, I'm personally saying the Roofx is going to win the AA. I think that it'll come down between Smash It and Sports Reach as far as 2 and 3. So, you kind of give the edge to Smash It there from a roster standpoint, and then Sports Reach from a 3, and then Chick-fil-A has had, like you said, the flashes of brilliance. And then this past weekend in Chicago, I think they scored 2 in one game. And it just was not an ideal situation, especially on a 300-foot field with good pro-ams. That's not a good thing. But they definitely have the roster to do it. But, I think that you're looking at JBL, as long as Biscuit is doing his thing on the mound, they have like you said, a puncher's chance.
So David Biscuit as John Dabrowski for JBL pitcher. He has a knee injury. He's having knee surgery. He's going to be out until Indiana duel. So
that's definitely a thing for them. I know that Smash It just added Sean Jones and KJ, Kevin Johnson. I think KJ is going to be more of a coaching role, but I mean, that's Tom Bloom. You got KJ. That's Tom Bloom, Sean Jones, KJ. That's a really good grouping of pitchers there. But then, I mean, the other one that I don't know why I keep kind of scrolling over them, because they've definitely competed and they have the offense to do so, is S&E. I mean, I think that S&E deserves to be in that conversation as well. I mean, Bobo down in Florida, he's won a lot. Bobo Ogletree, their pitcher, he's won a lot. Not afraid, does everything he's supposed to do, and they hit really well. They got a bunch of guys that are, again, been there, done that. They finished second a couple years ago.
Yeah,
Really,
and David S&E has Tyler Wiles hurt. Peter Seiden's been missing. Locklear and Oliver have been banged up, so half the team's been injured.
Yep. I mean, that's
Camper.
That's a lot. And I mean, Elvin's again another manager who has kind of done this thing for a long time. I definitely think they have a good chance, but I think right now, assuming a healthy, able to pitch the entire time, Justin Mucciarelli, I would not put it past Rufex to win that tournament. And if they happen to go loser bracket early, those boys don't get tired. So I definitely think Rufex has got the best chance currently.
Does Spencer have anything else to say about AA? I mean, I'd like to go through the teams if you think we have time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Spencer, you got anything else before I go through the teams?
I mean, I think y'all pretty much covered it all. I mean, as far as, some of those guys that kind of are sticking out on some of those teams, like you said, that S&E group, Matt Mazzell, the guy that's hitting at the top of their order or near the top of their order, playing infield for them right now. I mean, he's been a great add to what they had. And like David said, if they get there at the AA and get hot, they can score runs with anybody. All right. So, I mean, AA is so tight that I don't think, AA Worlds is going to be fun this year, right? To sit back and watch game after game after game of just good teams that are pretty close to each other. Those are going to be high quality games, one after another after another. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, real quick, I'll go through the teams. Dawson, if you could share my screen with the stats for each team, I'll just scroll through. Chick-fil-A here, this is just alphabetical order. Jonathan Brock, how about pinch hitter of the year? Guy's 857 on base in a pinch hitting role. They did what AA teams need to do. They picked up a young player, gave him a shot, Zach Sanford. Terrence Engels, we thought he was retiring. He came back. He's come back strong, 700. They picked up Justin Luther, Matt Brady. Jacob Clifton's a huge stadium power guy and a Florida power guy. The leadership of Tanai Alston, the sponsorship of John Natoli and leadership. Great team. So Classic Glass, how did they build their team? They didn't get that young player, right? They don't have any new players, new talent on this team. It's all kind of guys that have been there and done that. But Brady Stewart having a big year, Ryan Ramirez at the top. Dan Kirkwood's trying to do some pitching. Maybe they have some trouble there with the pitching. Blake Lively, a huge pickup. Guy's always an underrated infielder and with the bat. Jeff Flood took a year off for a job, and he's kind of missed time this year.
And not to interrupt you on the next group, but another guy that's up there that they just added recently, a former teammate of mine, Jeff Andrews, coming from Canada. I mean, the guy's hit 720 plus in 2 or 3 years in the conference. I mean, he's got a lot of power, plays good outfield. That's a good ad for them, especially down in Florida.
Yeah, Andrews, Team Canada player as well for the border battle. Go on to JBL, Dave Johnson having an MVP type season. He's doing it with the glove too. John Radich going for a batting title. You mentioned Spencer Brock Frenzel earlier with the shoulder injury. He's having a defensive MVP type season, and he's got a 736 on base percentage. Steve Edwards having another great year. Cody Roten trying to hold down third base. Orlando Oliveira was offensive MVP this past weekend and long bomber of the week when the report comes out. You know what their trouble is? since Frenzel's been out, outfield defense has let them down a little bit. Nitro Circus, they got Joseph Caparelli, another Double-A team that went and found some new talent. He's going for the batting title, 793. We still have to verify some of these stats. Yeah, what do you got, Spencer?
I said Caparelli's having a hell of a year. He's a real tough out.
Yeah, he reminds me of an Andrew Collins when Collins was coming into the league. And his power is crazy power, 65 homers.
Yeah, it's crazy that his power plays big to the backside, right? So, I mean, he wants to square it up to the right side and drive the ball apart, and that's going to play big on the stadium in Florida, right? I think we saw a little bit of that out of him at the Challenge Cup. He's got that swing to right field. You know, he's a big, tall guy, catches that pitch at his chest and just drives it out. He's been real impressed with how he's transitioned, over to Nitro Circus this year.
Yeah, Jose Flores added a pitcher, got him to the Sunday finish in his first time out. Rufex we've talked about at length. I don't think we have anything else to add there. Of course,
I do have
Mooch is going to help.
Yeah, something on Rufex. John Troyer, they picked him up from WM Roofing. Is that right?
I was wrong about that. It's kind of WM Roofing's minor league team. I think they're called J&L this year. They played in Chicago this past weekend, but yeah, he's all part of that area of talent.
Right. He's been a big ad for them. That kid's good. We've played him twice. I don't think we've got him out. I think he's 8 for 8 or 9 for 9. Big power. They hit him, I think, 5th in the order, so he's protecting Terry, who, people know Terry better because he's been around a little bit longer. And so, but Troyer's been doing a great job behind him, and he's a good player.
And he makes phenomenal plays at third base. You can see Rookie of the Year candidate on the stats here, 688, 35 homers, 104 RBIs. S&E, another, I think, rookie, right? Matt Mosel. What do you know about Matt? Anything, Dave?
I know that he was in the conversation last year to be with us, and something happened in the offseason where it just ended up not working out. I haven't seen him other than that, but watching how he plays, the kid makes phenomenal defensive plays. Yeah. He started out in the middle for them. Now he's over at third. Not sure why that is, but Jordan Robinson going to the middle is there. No matter how good your glove is, unless it's McClanahan or Marshburn type, Jordan Robinson's up there in that conversation too. Really, really good defender. And he's got the strangest batting stance I've ever seen. But the kid whacks it, and he's an extremely hard out, hustles out of the box. If he's a rookie, then awesome. I know he's I can't say I know. I believe he's a Florida kid. Comes maybe that the Young Guns team? And they've got several kids that came from that roster that's up in the conference now doing a great job.
Yeah, Matt Mosel. So S&E's got a Rookie of the Year candidate. They went and found some new talent. Jacob Hoskins, second year, big lefty bat. Roccabaldo came back to the team. Jordan Robinson, as you said, especially if he can hit that 640 or better, really going to help him. And then the injuries, Oliver, Locklear, Camphor, Wiles, and Seiden all have been hurt or missing. So when they get all those guys back, they should be better. Smash It, we kind of covered. All the major talent, guys that came from major. Kyle Fisher, a huge year in center field. And then Sports Reach, Austin Mapes, Rookie of the Year candidate, 697, 42 homers, 104 RBIs. Robbie Fowl kind of looks like the Sports Reach Robbie Fowl from a couple years ago. Dagmar Pena is a young shortstop. And then they mixed in all those precision guys that are so good. So they're right there. And then West Point. West Point's offense a little bit down. I think we'll talk about this with the classification. I think they're an A team. Like, they didn't make the moves to play Double-A. They shouldn't be left in Double-A. They're a very good A team, right? They could win A for sure. But that's my little run through of the Double-A division.
Like let's go back to Sports Reach for a second. You
Yeah,
brought up Austin Mapes. That kid's
yeah,
good, man. We actually touched base with him this offseason a little bit. And he had already, he was already with Sports Reach, but he came up with them last year, had a cup of coffee. I think it was 30 at bats or something last year, hit over 750, and then went back to his team, and then came back up with them this year. But he's both sides of the ball, defense, offense, speed. He's a good player, left-handed bat. His power's going to play in the stadium at Worlds. He's a really good player, up and comer. And then Dagmar Pena too. He came from that Bad Boys team in Florida, which actually
mhm,
last year he was playing B on that team as a shortstop, and they came to Texas for, I want to say it was North versus South in Mansfield, and he we played them 3 games that weekend, and he was 14 for 14 with 10 home runs, and they were hitting balls that were just disappearing into the night,
yeah.
and he's a really good up and coming player too, as far as shortstops go. Plays on both sides, speed, power. Um, so yeah, they did a real good job. Influx of new talent this year on Sports Reach.
Oh yeah, and Mapes, to touch on that point again, Mapes, he's got a really good mentorship from a standpoint of the folks that are really close to him. I think that goes a long way. I mean, he's got Bradley Jones and Jason Gilfillan near him to be able to go hit BP and go do all that stuff with. I mean, the kids, that's 2 really good options of individuals to hit with. I mean, if you want to talk about learning how to hit at the conference level and how to just play there, that's 2 really good choices to be around. So that doesn't hurt him at all. He's definitely got a bright future. I'm really excited to see what he can do, and I mean, really good kid too. So that's always a good thing. All right. So from a double A standpoint, I think we're all in agreement that we're looking at either a roof X or a smash it in the championship. And that's more or less what we're coming down to with some other folks getting a chance to kind of punch up. And that's more or less what it sounds. I think that's going to be a general consensus as it sits of the year so far, especially from a roster and current performance standpoint. So speaking of rosters and a little bit more into how all of this type thing has happened here. So to kind of break down how rosters start the year, there are some situations where teams will start because of their last year's success or because of how their roster got put to begin with. They start as TBD, so to be determined. If you made the major last year, as an A team, you're supposed to start as double A or, at least TBD so the conference classification committee can determine what class you belong in. Here recently, in the last week, I believe everyone was made aware of who's going where. I know, Spencer, you were directly involved in this from a standpoint of it affected the outcome of your team. So several teams got told they're staying there. Well, I can't say several teams. West Point, like DW just said, is staying double A. And then you have several teams that got put in the A division. The Seminoles, TaylorMade, Epic, Dirty Vegas, LSR, all of those teams are A. You have Bay Area Legends, A team that stayed A. And then you have a team from the AA division that's pushing that major-ish limit with Smash It Sports. Let's kind of talk a little bit about some of these rosters that stand out more so than others. DW, which one of these A rosters do you think is giving you more of a AA vibe other than an A vibe? But I mean, I know you agree with some of the A moves. Which one is kind of sticking out as maybe they probably should be a AA team?
I think there's an issue, like, if we should start with the double A team that's in question is Smash It Sports, right?
Okay.
They have Reyna, Dorton, Martell, and Fisher, who all played major last year. That's 4 guys. You can have 4 committee approved higher level players, but these are extremely good major level players. These aren't like bench guys that came down. These guys are all starters. Martell won the Offensive Player of the Year a couple of years ago. Fisher may be the best player in the state of Ohio. Luis Reyna has been there, done that. And we're not even counting Zane Miguez or Jason Branch as major players. And then they had Josh Cardwell, who's leading the team at 760 on base, and Fisher, who's the best player in Ohio possibly, get taken off of all lists so that this team could be AA. So if you're going to have a team like that in AA, then Seminoles, TaylorMade, Epic, Dirty Vegas, LSR, those are all A teams. That's where I come from. So I'm not going to nitpick those other teams if we're going to leave Smash It in the AA division.
So more of a, if it comes downhill from the AA to the A, if you feel like you can have a AA kind of a quote unquote super team. I'm the one that said that, not you, just so you don't get the flack. But a quote unquote super team, then you think that an A team should be allowed a little bit more leeway. Like the borderline AA team should be a little bit more leeway. Now, Spencer, I know that we were supposed to kind of team up together with S&E last year, and I know that Tyler Wiles, when we were talking, said that you are a huge statistical individual. You are all about like breaking down how everybody's going to play based on stats. A lot like the Moneyball movie. You're not Billy Bean. You're Jonah Hill's character. So what do you think from these teams that have been told they're staying A? I mean, obviously it's a good thing for you, I believe. But what do you think about the teams that are staying A? Do you feel like anybody should have stayed AA? What are you thinking on these teams that have been put on A?
I think, like DW said, if the Smash It roster is going to be a AA roster, then the rosters that got to stay A, probably are A rosters. I think the biggest thing that we could probably do to make this easier is to kind of tweak the system a little bit make it a little more cut and dry on, what is a team, what is a AA team from what is an A team. Prior to this year, it had always been how many roster points do you have, right? That's all that's kind of where it was real cut and dry for that. And now it's not so much. They tell you get 3 bumps from a higher classification plus a 4th committee approved bump. And it's really just created, I think, a little more confusion than it did kind of helping things out. And I think they may have wanted, based on performance, to bump maybe like Epic, who's kind of had a real good start to the season. But they weren't going to bump them without maybe bumping a couple of the other A teams that hadn't had such a good start to the season, that had, maybe on paper what's considered a higher caliber roster. So I really think that maybe just from a rules standpoint, maybe we could have some tweaks between this year and next year to make things a little more cut and dry on, how to classify each team.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I think that I'm going to go a little bit more into this. DW, do you happen to have the rosters available? Let's pull up, like, say, Bay Area Legends A team. Let's use that one as an example if you have it available there.
Yeah. Did I pass them?
I'm not totally sure. Let's see.
I don't think they're on there.
They're not even on it.
Well, there you. Well, I'm not gonna say there you go.
They didn't turn in any stats.
They don't turn in any numbers.
Gotcha.
To be honest, just so everyone knows, when Bay Area Legends does good this weekend, they don't get any awards because they haven't turned in any stats. You don't get awards if you don't turn in stats. So they could win the tournament. They won't have an MVP.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've got their roster pulled up if you want me to just run down it real quick.
I'm going to go through some of the ones that kind of stick out. So you have Randy Frederick, who's got AA experience. I believe he's watch list. So that's, if we go just by points, let's go by the points to begin with, right? You got Randy Frederick, Carriger, who hit like 800-ish almost last year. He's another watch list guy. Mason Moore's another watch list guy. Curtis Stewart is on the major list, I believe, still. So it was 1.25, 0.75, another 0.75, and another 0.75. That's really pushing it from a points standpoint alone. Then you talk about guys that have AA experience. And just for a disclaimer on all this, I completely agree with what DW is saying. If you have a really extremely good AA team in the division that's pushing major, everybody else should have a little bit of leeway. I completely agree with that. This is more of a devil's advocate side of it. So if you're looking at the Bay Area Legends A team, you have guys that have AA experience and or AA world wins. And Joey Gonzalez, sponsor, I get it, but he's also one of the best hitting sponsors in the game. Randy Frederick, Steven Lopez, Stewie, as we affectionately call him, and Steven Lopez. I don't think I've gotten him out in every year that I've ever pitched in the conference. The dude can hit, plays first base extremely well. Kenny Chavez is on there, Dante Broom, which may be one of the best defensive outfielders in the country, in Dante Broom. And then you have some folks with a little bit more major experience or high level AA experience in the Curtis Stewarts. And I know DJ Hollingsworth was on the team for them. I think he is done for the year. I'm not totally sure. I think he's done for the year. But that's a roster that, if you're talking about you can only have a certain amount of approved bumps coming down from a higher level team, where does that gray area end? We're talking about approved bumps coming down from AA. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 7 players at least, plus a really good hitting sponsor coming down from AA. Spencer, it will even go into your team, so that way maybe you can speak on it a little bit more, right? So right now, you just added Filateo. He's a watch list player, right? It's 0.75 points. I don't know if you have anybody else on the watch list. I know Mario was on it, but he got taken off.
Yeah.
Maggard probably should be on it. You're pushing it there too, and you have several guys coming from the addictive team last year with that. We made the major. We finished second in the A World. If you think about the possibility of maybe being a AA player, some of these kids are probably AA players. That kind of directly affects you. What's your thoughts there from a standpoint of being allowed all the extra?
Yeah, so there's some there's some fringe situations on some things like that too that you don't always see on the surface. Guys, number of at bats they had on those teams last year, whether those guys played Worlds or didn't play Worlds. When you're looking at this kind of stuff on paper, that's the kind of stuff you end up kind of dealing with. I think we've kind of all been through those situations of maybe reclassifications, or you do this long enough, you run into basically every situation in the book. And that's kind of the situation with some of the guys on this roster. Whether they didn't play Worlds last year or they only had a minimum number of at bats, things like that. And the Dirty Vegas roster has one watch list player, Filateo, and when that transaction was made, we only had one watch list guy on the roster at the time, Cody Shoemaker, and we made the swap, 1 for 1 on that, so we didn't add another bump or any more points. But yeah, it's a tough situation, and I think going back to our, the previous point of having a little bit more clear-cut rules in regards to how to classify rosters would help, across the board.
So yeah. I can definitely agree with the clear-cut rule thing. One of the things that I think that's been brought up before, and I know I can't say I know that for sure that DW has said this, but I feel like I've read it on one of your posts on the old Scotty W. But not all major players are created equal. Not all watch list players are created equal. There are some folks. Let's be real here, myself included. The first time I got put on the watch list, I'd hit 571. I got put on it because I got a second team all conference for a tradesman. Like, I didn't get put on it by earning it. I got put on it because I got on the second team all conference. And that should I count the same as, say, let's use Brandon Traylor. Years of hitting 700 or above. So if you're gonna, there is a lot to say there from a standpoint of black and white. Like 0.75 is 0.75. There is still some gray area there. DW, when you're looking at, what do you think from that standpoint?
Yeah, definitely within classifications, there's different levels of player. Mario Morales is a great example. I thought he was Rookie of the Year a couple of years ago for Epic. He went on, got a shot with Smash It. It didn't work out, dropped down, went to an A team, wound up on another. I think he played on 3 different teams last year.
Yep.
This year, I think, at least statistically here, we're looking at the real Mario Morales, 747, spraying the ball all over the place and playing. I haven't seen him a lot this year, but I'm assuming he's playing a decent shortstop. He's a great talent. So how do you rank that guy who was taken off the watch list is he A, is he double A? To me, he's double A plus or watch list level. But he's not
Right.
counting for anything on this roster, and that's fine. Teams in the off season, there's some experts out there that put together some teams, and these experts, they put the committee in a bad spot. Smash It Sports is putting the committee in a bad spot. They built a bad major team. They didn't go and get those 3 more players they needed to play major to try to cherry pick a double A world. Let's be honest, that's what they're doing. So that's affecting everything else, because I just don't see Dirty Vegas as a double A team when you have a Smash It and all these veteran double A teams up there. But they make the major this year. They make a nice run at the A. They'll probably have to start double A next year anyways.
Spencer, you got something there. What you got?
Yeah, I think maybe too that there could be a more defined set of rules on how you end up on the watch list or the major list, which would also help in the overall classification of teams from year to year. Just a little more defined process of how you end up on one of those.
Yeah, and Spencer, I think a nice rule would be like, to be considered a double A player, you have to have 200 career at bats at double A or something like that. Now, pitchers sometimes don't get a lot of at bats. They might have to be evaluated differently, but position players that have 200 at bats at the double A level, that kind of tells you they're a double A player, and they should count as a chip the next year or something like that might work.
A little bit more than the cup of coffee at the level type thing. I think is what you're getting at there. I mean, I think that we could probably beat this dead horse for a lot longer.
Yeah.
When it comes to classification, it happens from the conference all the way down. When you're talking about a little bit lower level, like a C team they know for sure you get 4 B drops, or 3 B drops, whatever it is. But say you take 3 of the best C teams from the state and you add all those C players together, all their best C players together, and then you get 3 B drops. That's not a C team, but by rule, it's a C team. So, right. I mean, it definitely is a thing that it kind of trickles down from the top. Totally get it. Again, we're kind of beating a dead horse there. There's not a lot of good answers to fix the situation, I guess is the way to put it.
Well, I think at our level, though, we're in the age of information, right? At this level of softball, we've never had more information about teams and players than we do right now, right? As far as a statistical standpoint, as far as video, if you want to know something about a player and you got an hour, you can find out whatever you want to know, right? I mean, that's just kind of the age of technology that we're living in all walks of life, right? And it rolls over to softball. At the lower level outside of the conference, you don't get that, right? You don't get the numbers, you don't get all the same, video archives that USSSA Live or whatever you need. But at our level, there's got to be a better process, right? You need to take into consideration number of at bats, performance in those at bats, things like that. And it's not going to be easy, but once you do it, once you go through it for the first year and you knock it all out, it's going to be much easier from year to year just to rate the new players than it is, trying to figure this whole puzzle out every single year. I don't know how many people are on the committee right now or what their process looks like, but maybe expanding that committee a little bit to have more eyes and ears and opinions on players out there would probably help.
I like that idea. I mean, I definitely think that if you have, it's got to be an odd number. Can't ever have an even number because you don't want a 5-on-5 type vote. But if you had, say, 11 people and they all voted anonymously on an individual, whatever the majority is, I mean, you got to deal with it. It is what it is. And I think that that could potentially be a great idea. I mean, the Ball Club's app, keeping up with everything from a standpoint of your stats, if all the teams were up with that, that would dramatically help this process, I believe. So you're talking about information. If it's right there available right in front of your face, up to date, you can't really argue it as how good somebody's playing.
Right. And I think that's part of something too that we really should probably work on is having everyone integrated into that better. Because some teams are using it, some teams aren't using it, some teams are still using Game Changer, some teams aren't doing anything at all, right? The Bay Area team, they don't ever turn in any stats. There's a couple other teams that just have zeros. And if we want this to really, if we expect the conference to be the elite level of softball, not just in the country, but probably in the world, then we need to take that process more seriously, right? Everybody involved should want that process to be as right and as serious and as clear cut as possible. And that goes to across the board. Not tucking your jersey in, not being out of the dugout. All those kinds of things. We should, as a group, as a whole, should probably all take more seriously.
I love that take. I think that take goes into a much longer show. But I absolutely love that take. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. We're, like I said, we could probably spend a lot longer on this particular topic, but we're not gonna push that envelope that much farther today. So we're okay there. So before we go to the end of this, DW, do you happen to? Because I personally have not looked. Have you looked at the bracket for the Golden State Major? Do you know who's going there? Because I personally have not looked.
Yeah. So if you share my screen. This is the winners bracket of the men's. There's 7 conference teams, probably led by Bay Area Legends, Straight Play, Cheap Suits, Seminoles, NFM Lending. We haven't seen in a while. It should be a good little tournament. There's some upset potential out of these C and B teams that are non-conference on Friday, and then. Actually, Eric's going out to cover the tournament for me this week. So next week we'll have condensed games. And, of course, USSSA Live will be up Friday. And just wanted to say 2 things. I think I can say USA softball on this show, but they are coming to Cleveland, Ohio for the border battle. So all those great conference players will be right here in Cleveland, Ohio at Brookside Park. July 28th through the 30th. And I wanted to plug next week's All-Star game, BSC All-Stars versus Conference All-Stars. Thursday, June 15th. I should have the camera up as long as I get there in time. It should be a great game. I know it's a grudge match.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing that one. That's I believe that's part of the conference cares thing is spearheaded by Ryan Talon. I like that idea, so it's definitely a good thing. I look forward to watching that one. Spencer, but to wrap these up, you got any final thoughts? Obviously, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for coming with us today. It's always refreshing to hear a different individual. What's that, DW?
Who's your picks also for the
there you go.
California?
So let's make a pick on California and give me some wrap up thoughts here, Spencer.
It's probably, Bay Area's got to be the favorite down there. That game in the bottom quarterfinal or the bottom semifinal between Seminoles or NFM Lending. I don't know who all Seminoles is taking out there right now as far as what's on their roster versus who's actually showing up. So they could if they have everybody they could be a problem for Bay Area at the bottom of that. And then Straight Play. I think they've got 6 or 7 new guys since LNS broke up. Maybe a couple other moves built in there. So the end of that, your semifinal game should be pretty good. With Straight Play, Seminoles, maybe NFM and Bay Area. Overall, the Bay Area should win that tournament, I would think.
Yeah. And then DW, who do you have winning this before I wrap the show up?
Yeah, it's at a Big League Dreams park, so it could be wide open. I believe on my Pick'em, remember you can play the Pick'em game each week and win a Juno prize. The final prize for that Juno Pick'em is worth over $700 if you win the Major World Series. But I had Straight Play winning. You're right, Spencer. They have a bunch of moving parts with all the new players. I had Straight Play winning over Bay Area. I think I had Cheap Suits 3rd, NFM 4th, and Seminoles and EAS tied for 5th.
I like that. I like that breakdown. That's definitely looking at the bracket. That's the route that I would go. I think that Straight Play and Bay Area are probably going to meet in the sit back game or the king seat, whatever you want to call it. And I think that Seminoles probably I think Seminoles is probably going to end up meeting Bay Area at the bottom of the bracket there, and it's going to be. I lean towards straight play. I like Josh Jones pitching. He's a workhorse up there. I like him a lot. Straight play probably going 1. I'll go Bay Area 2 and Seminoles 3. I like that little row out, but I think especially on Big League Dreams, like you said, anybody can win any of those. And then the only other thing I was wanting to do here is and I know you said that you weren't sure if you could say USA or softball on the show or not, but I do want to congratulate all the folks that made Team USA, men's, women's, futures, the main team. Yeah, that's a huge accomplishment. It's a big deal for your careers, and it's a very, very good thing to see a lot of those folks. Some of those folks are first time. It's really awesome to see some of the names on there.
Yeah, and they're basically all conference players. So we support all of softball here. And David, I just wanted to ask you, Seminoles gets dropped from AA to A, which I think we all agree on. That instantly puts them as one of the favorites in A. Does mentally their mood change and they just go out and dominate California here?
I mean, from my standpoint, I would think that if you're in AA to start the year and you feel like, well, we're probably not going to compete well at the end of the year. I mean, not saying that they necessarily feel that way, but if the thought process, man, we really we got to hope somebody beats Smash It or Roofx, and then we can get them once type thing. I mean, and now you get to go to A and say, hey, we got a legit chance of winning the A. I mean, it's definitely a good confidence boost, I believe. And I think it works well for even the Dirty Vegas folks. I mean, I think it's a good confidence boost from that standpoint. So I don't disagree with that. Hopefully that their thought process was not that they're not going to win the AA, but I think they're more confident that they win the A. So it's definitely something I agree with. But to wrap the show up here, guys, of course, as always, thank you for our panelists. DW, you're always here and give great insight. Love having you here. Spencer, thank you again for joining us. And all those folks that are joining us live on either Facebook, YouTube, or whatever other streaming service that you are here with us, thank you again for joining us. I know it's the middle of the day. We always love having everybody here. If you're watching this now or later, again, thank you for joining us for Conference USSSA. This has been the Hit and Sit Show number 30. We'll have another one here soon, probably after the Golden State Major.